Hello and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another potluck wrap up. Now if you don't remember, this was a series that I did last year which I stole from Blonde with a Book, where they wrapped up all of the books they'd read over the last year and kind of did it out of a teapot, and I really liked that idea, and I had this really cool gothic, I don't even know if I showed you properly, but like it's a proper like goth teapot, and I love it very much, and it makes this really nice sound when I open it because it's like proper bone china. But anyway, rather than use it for, you know, tea and spoil it and make it all stained and stuff, I put all of the titles of the books that I've read over the last month in this, and then I pick out the ones each month that I can review and try to review as many as I can in 20 minutes. Now, I did not review anything at the end of December, and originally I had planned to kind of wrap up whatever was left, because I still have books in this pile from July and June of last year which I have not yet wrapped up, and obviously I was trying to aim for 300 books, so there are loads of audio books in here that I don't actually have paperbacks for to show you, etc. But I'm hoping that I will be able to tick off quite a few today as the first of the year. So my January wrap up, as you know, I do the timer for 20 minutes to see how many I can get wrapped up in that time, and I'm hoping it'll be quite a few. Anyway, so I think that's enough preamble for like the first one of the year, but let's press go. My timer has started counting down, and the first book that I'm going to wrap up for you for January, although it could be from last year, is going to be Horror Store. Now I've actually already unhauled my copy of Horror Store. This was a horror novel that I read in December, and it's a really interesting one because I remember talking, I read like a little snippet of it and had enjoyed it, and then I read The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix and really didn't like it, and I couldn't even get into my best friend's exorcism, really didn't enjoy that either. But Horror Store had just enough silliness for me to enjoy it. I thought the premise was really clever. So if you don't know, Horror Store is essentially what would happen if, rather than your house being haunted, it was an IKEA store being haunted. And Grady Hendrix always has some really great ideas for horror novels, but I find that it doesn't negate the very problematic nature of characters of his. And I've recently discovered this term, lampshading. It's used as a film term more than a literary term, but essentially it's where you highlight a problem such as racism, sexism, domestic abuse, whatever, but you don't actually get your characters to do anything about it. So with Horror Store, I was kind of on the back foot already because I had seen lampshading in Final Girl Support Group, where things like mental health and trauma were acknowledged but never really used except for as a plot point. Horror Store is a lot more chill than that. It's very short as a read goes. Obviously the fact that it looks like a IKEA catalogue as well, there is that added element to it. I did enjoy it, but I don't think that Grady Hendrix is an author that I'm going to go back to, which was just a really long-winded way of saying I enjoyed the book but I think I'm done with the author now. Okay, next we have American Gods. No, to be fair, this was one from January, because apparently I decided, as like a knee-jerk response to last year trying to cram in 300 very short reads, I was going to pick up some really hefty ones instead. Now, I buddy read this with Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe, and we have a running streak of not liking the books that we buddy read together. First it was Love is a Revolution, which was fine, but like neither of us like massively loved it. Then it was Addie LaRue, which we both hated, and now it is American Gods, which we both hated. Now American Gods is pitched as this kind of what is American Gods pitched as? I don't even know. It's meant to be a kind of walk through America narrative about gods, about different religions, the battle between new gods and old, and it was so boring. It was so boring. There were like these little elements where you were like, oh, maybe it'll be a mystery, except the plot twist was so anticlimactic, to the point that I messaged Olivia and said, how did you feel about that plot twist? And she didn't even realise there was a plot twist. She was just like, oh, that just happened. Like, did we not all see that coming? Yeah, of course we saw it coming. It was so anticlimactic, and just, the thing was, I mean, it's so problematic anyway. every female character is either a siren or a nun. There are no in-betweens. The first female character that we meet is Shadow's wife, and he sees her as this angel, except you find out that she died whilst giving a blowjob to his best friend in a car. And essentially they were having sex whilst driving, and they crashed into a lorry and they died. And that's the first female character we meet. And then the second female character we meet is this Egyptian goddess who literally eats people through her vagina, and that description is so visceral and just unpleasant. And then there's the racism as well. Now, I was listening to this as an audiobook as well as reading along, and Olivia had to point out to me that the N-word crops up on page 12, because in the audiobook they've taken it out. They kind of hint at it, but it's still there. And then they're talking about people and their different types of blood, and the fact that their blood is related to their race, and it's just like the whole thing was just really cringe. And why is every woman high-breasted? What does high-breasted even mean? Please someone don't explain it in the comments, because you'll either get this video banned or your comment, I just won't see it. But just think about it for a minute. What does that even mean? I don't understand. And then, like, those things, the fact that people are ignoring those things because they're like, oh, but the writing's fine. The writing's fine, but there are so many great fantasy novelists out there. And I feel like Neil Gaiman does tread on, like, the line between literary and fantasy, and therefore people think you can get away with stuff like this. But having read Coraline, and it was fine, and then having read How the Marquis Lost His Coat and found that really boring, this again was just like a last chance for Neil Gaiman to not be trash, and I kind of hated it. I kind of hated how problematic it was, and then the fact that it was just so boring. Like, you just move from setting to setting and nothing happens. Occasionally they will talk about crimes, occasionally they'll talk about a con, and then that spoils the whole ending. And I'm so sorry, Olivia, that once again we have buddy read such a shit book. It was so boring and so problematic. I literally, so like, I have this thing where if I DNF a book it gets 1 star. If I finish it, it gets 2. This deserved a 1 star, but I gave it 2 because I finished it purely because Olivia and I are completionists and we felt that we had to, but I hated it. It's nice to start the year with a rant, isn't it? I want to review Love is a Revolution because that is the oldest one, but what I'm actually going to review is The Love Hypothesis. Okay, very different vibe. My first read of the year. Now, this was gifted to me from Lizzie over at Lizzie as Elf. This started as a Raylo fic, and it got picked up by Little Brown and turned into a proper book, and I could not be more grateful because it meant that I could read it, enjoy it, and put it on Goodreads as a 5 star. There was nothing, not a hair on this book's head that I would change. Now, I mean, as obvious from the t-shirt, I am a Star Wars fan, and I mean, I'm even wearing, I don't know if you can see that, I'm wearing Star Wars pyjamas. Got little stormtroopers on them. I am a Star Wars fan. Star Wars for me has never necessarily been about the romance or the love story. I enjoyed Han and Leia's story. I really, really enjoyed Rey and Kylo / Ben's story. I really enjoyed those. But this was all the romance that I needed in a slightly different, still sciencey setting. So this follows a young girl called Olive, whose best friend fancies Olive's ex-boyfriend. Except Olive has no feelings towards this person, she literally couldn't care less. But her friend Anne, she doesn't want to date this person because it's Olive's ex. So Olive convinces her that she has a new boyfriend and kisses the first person she sees to prove to Anne that she has a new boyfriend, except that person is the resident grumpy professor who likes to throw tantrums and is very tall and very sexy and weirdly looks like Adam Driver. So, all good stuff. But this book had so much more in it than just your standard kind of grumpy sunshine romance dynamic. It looked at bereavement, it looked at like the intricacies of being intimate with someone, what happens when you haven't been intimate with someone for a really long time, not just sex wise but just opening up to people. It set in STEM. I need more romances set in STEM, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And I'll admit, there was a bit that made me cry. It's not made anyone else cry, I appreciate that, but there was just this moment where I realised I will never have a boyfriend like Adam Carlson, and that made me really sad. I was definitely overtired, I was definitely hormonal, but it just made me really sad that there aren't any real people like this. And I know TikTok boys are trying to convince you there are, and I know that they think that by dressing up like Reese and Tamlin, they are actually Reese and Tamlin. They're not. They're doing it to get your attention. This person doesn't exist, and I wish they did. I really wish they did. So thank you, Ali Hazelwood, for setting my standards even higher than they were before I read this book. Loved this book, gave it 5 stars. It was just, oh god, it was magical. It was so friggin' magical, and I'm so excited for Love in the Brain, which is part of the same world, it's the same like universe, but it's completely different characters. I'm excited to see their love story unfold as well. I'm just, oh, it was so cute, and it was so wholesome, and it wasn't like super steamy. I know a lot of people have been like, ooh, but it has that one sex scene that lasts a long time, but it is just like the one. I get that. So if you're looking for like smut, this isn't it, but oh my god, my heart. It was so perfect, and I loved it so much. So it was nice to kind of, you know, wrap that up pretty much as soon as I read it, because I read that one in January. Next one is going to be Dial A For Aunties. This is another romance, and this is a chaotic romance, because it also has kind of murder elements in it. Now, I thought it was going to be kind of like a murder mystery with romance elements, but it's not. It's definitely like a romance slash contemporary with murder elements in it. And essentially in this you have a group of Chinese women who are all the aunties, and they host weddings basically. They can do everything you need for your wedding. You've got the cake, you've got the flowers, you've got the entertainment, and you've got the makeup. And then the young girl, whose name I've forgotten because I read this 100 years ago, Medi, that's it. She is the photographer, and she doesn't really want to be a wedding photographer anymore. She wants to do other things with her photography, but she also doesn't feel like she can leave her aunts. And she believes that there is this family curse where every man in the family is destined to leave the women of the family. So when she's at university and she finds this person that she's desperately in love with, she never brings him home to meet the family. She never kind of makes any forward plans with him. And when he proposes to her, she has to say no to him, and he becomes the one that got away. And she always kind of regrets it because she loved him so much, and they had all this stuff in common, and it's really sweet. So this book then catches up like 4 or 5 years later, where she's working for her aunts, and she bumps into this guy. Now, unfortunately, the night before she went on an absolutely terrible date where this guy tried to, trigger warnings, sexually assault her, who then crashed his car and died. Now, because she's been on this terrible date, and because she knows that it could tie back to her, she panics and she gets her aunts involved. And then the rest of the book is them in a very carry-on kind of way, constantly trying to hide the body whilst also reuniting herself with her old romance. And it was just really fun. It was really silly, but it was really joyful. I gave it 4 stars. It was just great. And again, like, it was kind of perfect timing because I read this about 5 days after Bridesmaid Survival Guide went to print. So I was like, yeah, I'm actually in the mood for wedding-based romances, and that's exactly what this was. And it was just, yeah, like I said, it was really good fun. Would absolutely recommend it. And I'd also recommend that you read the Bridesmaid Survival Guide, because that would really help me out. Really proud of it. It's actually kind of good. There are no reviews on Goodreads yet. I don't know what's going on with that, but if you've read it, review it on Goodreads, please. It's going to be To Kill a Kingdom. Wow, what a quick way to make pirates boring. This book starts with 2 characters who are so angsty and both think they're the villains. And then it just stays in YA territory where they're not villains. Neither of them are particularly bad people. They travel across their fantasy globe for the MacGuffin, and then they like fight each other and stuff, and then they kiss a little bit, and it's meant to be like enemies to lovers, but there's just no chemistry between either of these characters. They're just kind of like weirdly obsessed with the other for really obscure reasons. The big bad guy was kind of, you know, she was alright, I guess. Like, it was just, there's literally nothing to comment on about this book, and I was really disappointed because I bloody love pirates, but this was just, it was just flat. It exists. It was a pedestrian book. I've said that before. I've used the phrase pedestrian before. It was a pedestrian book that exists. I'm not even going to waste any more time on it. Like, I've got nothing else to say. That's how boring it is. Next. Oh, The Last Graduate. Okay, so I actually got this as a NetGalley review arc and then bought myself the hardback to go with my other hardback. Now, I'm not going to necessarily say what happens in this book because, like I said, it's a sequel to A Deadly Education. But what I will say is if you have read it and you got to the end and just kind of stared into the void, same. Because in the first book, she's all like alone, and in the second book, she's not alone, and it's just really lovely. And then just that ending, the magic system in this, I really love that it's a really hard magic system. They're always kind of working stuff out. It still feels like HP on steroids, but I don't mind that. This is probably the fastest paced Naomi Novik book that exists. Didn't mind that either, and I need the third one now, because what the fuck, you know? What the fuck? Short and sweet, wasn't it? I've still got Love as a Revolution in front of me, which is stressful. Okay, so Lost in the Netherwoods and Peter Pan. Now, I've actually already unhauled my Lost in the Netherwoods, but I still have my Peter Pan copy. I don't know why. I should have unhauled this at the same time. I would have unhauled this at the same time. I have started doing Discord only vlogs. So I will pick a book or pick a theme and I will record a vlog or attempt to record a vlog. February's is a little delayed. And then I will share it with Discord people only. And this is kind of I really want to get good at making vlogs. I think vlog content would be like really fun, but I'm just not confident enough to share it regularly and everywhere. So it's for Discord only, and it kind of like would be Patreon but free kind of way. But essentially I read Peter Pan and then compared it to Lost in the Netherwoods. Now, Peter Pan is trash. It's racist, it's problematic, it's sexist, it's the worst. And it's a classic, but I can't understand why people still keep coming back to this. There are classics that aren't those things. Just so you know, there are classics that exist that aren't racist or sexist. They exist. They are few and far between, for sure, and some of them are still very, very dated. This is trash. Hated this. And then I went on to read Lost in the Netherwoods, and I think my problem with that was Aidan Thomas really likes Peter Pan. That's really clear, because there's this creepy little love story between Wendy and Peter in Lost in the Netherwoods. I've just put that back I've just put it back. That was stupid. Oh, that's fine, I found it. I'm just going to put it down so I don't drop it back in the teapot. Yeah, so it was really clear from the writing that Aidan Thomas really likes Peter Pan, and I don't. And I put a comment below saying, is there a Peter Pan retelling which shows what a trash person / being he is, because he's just the fucking worst. He is what would be described now as an absolute fuckboy, and I just hate him. So I've been told to read The Lost Boy by Christina Henry. So at some point I will try to get to that this year so I can compare. But if you want to jump on the Discord, I will put the link down below so that you can, you know, watch those vlogs. They are trash because I can't do vlogs. But maybe you just want another excuse to laugh at me, in which case that's exactly what they are. 2 minutes left. Come on, Love is a Revolution. Please. It's the oldest book in this list. Okay, December, Martha Wells, the Murderbot series. I read the entire 1 to 6 book series. I think 7 is coming out this year or next, of the Murderbot series, starting with All Systems Red. This is about he is part robot, but he's also kind of like a cyborg, who is basically a security bot for scientists investigating the potential for life on another planet. And it's very Firefly in that they're kind of like space pirates, and they're not, but they deal with space pirates, and you have all the kind of different worlds, different languages and things like that, but it's all from the robot's perspective. He's so, not monosyllabic, but just kind of stoic, and dealing with these humans who keep getting themselves killed, and is there anything worse than a human that thinks they know better than a bot, and all this sort of stuff. And it's just really, really funny. And then as you go throughout the series, you meet other robots, and you meet spaceships with personalities. And now, I'm not a massive fan of sci-fi, but I don't know if it was just the writing style and the very, very easy way that you follow through this narrative, or the fact that the books are all really, really short because they're novellas. But I loved this series. I thought it was really, really clever, and I'm really excited to read more. And when I get the opportunity to buy hard copies of them, I absolutely will, because I did this as an audiobook series on Scribd, and I would definitely recommend it. If you're not sure if you like sci-fi, but you do like adventure stories and very much you're looking through my eyes POV style writing, most people would just call it first person, but I forgot the phrase for first person, then I would absolutely recommend it. And if you love sci-fi, then you've probably already read it and you love it too, I'm assuming. Let me know down in the comments down below. Have you read the Murderbot series? It's great. Okay, well, Love is a Revolution from June/July is still in the pile. It's not ideal, but I didn't do too badly overall. Books in this pile that I both loved and hated, so we love to see it. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books and which ones you enjoyed, or any that you think you will pick up now that you've seen what I think of them. Click on the links down below to treat yourself to something from Waypoint, and other than that, have a nice day.